thanks so much for joining us in our podcast of Why Are You Worried About It? This is a journey towards a better you. I am Lindsay Bush. I am the HR director with Crossroads Counseling, and I'm so glad you're here.
Hey everybody, I'm Susie Arbo and I am a counselor and I specialize in mental health therapy. So we are so glad that you are joining us today. We try to cover topics that we feel like are relevant in our world of what we're living right now, and also just topics that we feel like could help other people. And we're on this journey along with you guys. So we have a very actually a special guest today that we have been excited to have on here. I've tried multiple times now to get him on, and today he finally committed. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to Merle Arbo. And Merle, you want to tell him who you are?
Well, I think you did a pretty good job. I'm Merle Arbo. Yeah, I'm Susie's husband. My agent finally approved me to be on here today, and I'm happy to be here with you guys.
That's awesome. Yeah, lots of special approvals had to go on to get this to happen.
Contractually obligated with better horses, so Ed had to sign off. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
All right. Good deal. Well, I've especially been excited to have Merle on here because he is a native and rural Missourian, right? Growing up in the Midwest, and he grew up in the country in kind of a smaller community, and so being married to me now and being with me, I guess, for all these years, and I specialize in kind of the mental health field. It's just kind of been like an eye-opening experience. And he always says all the time how it's just kind of been like he didn't realize that the impact. And our topic today is we're going to talk about men's mental health. That's kind of what we're here for. So Merle, do you want to share a little bit about that?
When we started this journey and we started Country Crossroads, I was a little unsure about the success of a counseling business in a rural setting. And what has been very obvious over the years now, it's been 10 years, that there is a desperate need in the rural communities. And I think sometimes in the rural communities, we kind of bury our head in the sand and kind of pretend like nothing's wrong. And there's a lot of things wrong. The same goes with guys too, especially. I think that's a bigger deal. I think only about 36% of men make up the clients in therapy nationwide. So that proves that there's, a big discrepancy between women seeking therapy and men seeking therapy.
Yeah, I always know that, I feel like just our society and with the stigma and whatnot around therapy and getting help, for some reason, it always just seems like women and, teenagers and always females just kind of gravitate towards, therapy. It now is becoming kind of a cool thing. It's becoming a more widely accepted thing and whatnot. And so I think sometimes we still kind of have that kind of that feeling that men have, that they've got to be tough and they've got to be strong and they can't show emotion, and so we and especially we fight that in the rural areas, and it's getting way better, but we see that all the time in our practice as far as a lot more women than men. With that being said, Merle, can I tell a little bit of a story about you?
Oh, I can't stop you, I guess.
Yeah, I've got you a prisoner here. No, but one thing that I just think is so fascinating is that, Merle growing up in his area here and kind of being really rural and whatnot, he had some significant trauma, I would say, and just some interesting kind of relationships and whatnot with among family members, and went through like a lot of really hard things. And I always give him credit and just give him compliments to say he's been so resilient of what he's been through as a child, and he's never let that get him down. He keeps his head up and he keeps powering through, and he had a lot of support from other family members. And with that being said, you rarely, I guess, talk about, kind of your childhood and kind of what you went through and stuff, some of those things, and you kind of always just kind of keep going forward. And Merle's profession, he's a horse trainer, and we have a cattle ranch and horses out here, and so it's kind of a profession that's known too as, hey, you've got to be tough. You've got to keep going. And so I'll get to the point of my story here. If you guys are just waiting on pins and needles. So a while ago, I can't remember, Merle, maybe it was like January when your tooth cracked.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was.
So his tooth literally cracked and he had the worst toothache ever. And he would walk around the house and he'd hold his mouth and he would say, gosh, my tooth, I got to get into the dentist. And I don't know about you guys, but during the pandemic, we all kind of put like anything extra on the back burner, and we didn't do like the extra appointments, right? Like dentists and dermatology and like all those kind of specialty things. And so Merle was no different, right? He didn't do the dentist, he didn't do that kind of stuff. And so we're like, you know what, let's get you in, and get an appointment going. And I just thought the irony of that is that here, on his mental health and his emotional health side, he's been through all this hard stuff, but yet he rarely talks about it. But then the minute there is a physical pain going on in his body, then he instantly feels like it's okay to talk about that and to let people know that he's got pain.
I tried to tough it out. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was like, oh, okay, it's a cracked tooth. I can get by. I'll chew on the other side of my mouth. It'll get better. And it didn't. I mean, that's the thing is it just kept on hurting, and eventually I had to go see a dentist. But there's a lot of people that have probably the same pain. A lot of guys, that think, okay, I can tough this out. I'll get through this. And a lot of guys do. I mean, that's the fact is I think a lot of guys do tough it out. But we don't think twice when it's something physical, but when it's something mental that maybe people can't see, or like even that tooth deal is kind of a little bit of, oh, don't be a pansy. You can't even see it. You're not bleeding, like, and it's like, no, it really hurts to chew.
I think it's interesting. Do you find I see it a lot with little kids? It's ingrained and it starts really young. Like I feel like our little girls, when they're sad, it's okay, let's cuddle, let's talk about it. What's wrong? Use your words. But with little boys, I tend to hear, suck it up. I'll give you something to cry about. Maybe it's out here in the country, but it's very much like a little boy's not allowed to be sad, or if he is sad, then he's definitely more sensitive or labeled as more sensitive instead of like maybe a little girl would be. Do you feel like that maybe, Merle, like growing up, that's something that's kind of instilled in you? It's
Oh,
just
sure. I mean,
toughen
like,
up.
especially, and like I say, my background is a rural setting, and I'm a horse trainer, and so I mean, it's hey, cowboy up, get back on the horse that threw you, you know, don't cry, that type of deal, and I think it starts that a generation of, and I think it's trending more positive now than it used to be, but yeah, I think that's a big part of why we have these issues with guys my age and older and younger too. I mean, um, suicide is the second leading cause of death for men aged 10 to 34, which is pretty alarming, I think. And so there's a need for guys to get out here and talk about it. I know I've been in a very intensive counseling program now for probably 13 or 14 years with
You didn't
Susie.
know what you
So
were signing on
yeah,
to.
well, I couldn't afford counseling, so I had to marry one,
That was a cheaper
Yeah.
route, huh, Merle?
Yeah, well, in hindsight being 2020, I don't know. Maybe I should have paid for the sessions.
Yeah, and Merle always does joke that he's been in this intensive counseling program with me. He is a trooper though, let me tell you, because when we take our road trips and we travel often, I will put on a Audible book or a podcast or something about mental health or the therapy world, and he will listen and he takes it all in, and he's in this business just as much as we are, Lindsay. He works
Yeah.
it and does it all, and he's always just talked about, kind of how surprised he was that, of what goes on in the mental health world and how many people can benefit from it and need it, how good it is. Merle, I'm glad that you did talk about suicide on here and bring that up. And I know for a lot of people that is a really hard topic, and it just feels kind of uncomfortable to talk about. But it's actually something that I've been called on a mission now since 2005 to talk to as many people as I can about it, because we know that the more that we do get the word out there, that it does save lives. And there's ways to do that. But the suicide rate is actually 4 times higher in males than females. That's really significant, right? And I think a lot of that is due to men having to shove everything under the rug and not being able to deal with those feelings, because we know that our very best coping skill we have as humans is talking about what's bothering us, right? Also, males make up 50% of our US population right now, and 80% of all the suicide deaths are men. So that's another kind of just alarming statistic as of 2023. And so, and we know in 2022, after the pandemic, we had the highest suicide rates we've ever had, over 49,500 people. And so one thing that, we can talk all day about the alarming numbers, but I think it's more important to talk about what are we doing about it and what can we do about it. And there's stuff that all of us can do every single day. That's just some easy things. Caring and checking in with people is one of the biggest protective factors of just literally helping somebody. And so asking, if you work in a construction industry, or, you work at a school, or wherever you work, even just like asking your coworkers, I've noticed, you've been down lately, or things seem overwhelming for you, or whatnot. And just having those conversations. And it might not be the first time you check in with somebody that they might like start to show you that, hey, I'm not okay. It might be the fifth or the ninth time, right? But we just want to keep asking, because that literally is one of the best things that we can do. And I run the roads, and I speak to people all over the country actually about this. And I'm really, really proud to say that I have had a lot of construction companies that have reached out that said, hey, can you come to the job site, and can you talk to our guys and women, there's women too, about mental health, about suicide prevention. And September is Suicide Prevention Month. So it's kind of perfect that we're talking about this. But and also manufacturing companies. Construction and manufacturing are in the top actual 9 professions of the most suicide rates. Also, farmers and ranchers are in that top 10 category as well. So if you kind of look at that, that's a huge thing, that there's that many.
I love that you said that, like, we know that it's staggering and everybody's been impacted by it. And you can think about all the people that are going to help, because there's only so much you can talk about. And people, they hear numbers. It's almost like listening to the news anymore. Sometimes it just goes over people's head. But I was thinking about whenever I got to start being around you more and things, I was always floored by the amount of people that felt safe enough to pull you aside and talk to you in the most sometimes not conventional ways, not, at an event, not a mental health event. It might be at a restaurant or bar and grill where you see somebody. And a lot of times it would be men that would say, I'm really going through this. And it's always kind of, I love that about Susie, because she's able to bring that out in people. So I think that's great. But how do we get people to feel safe to talk about those things?
Well, and Susie brought up a good point. I check in with several of my buddies a lot more now than I used to. If you used to be guys can kind of pick up the relationship where it left off, if we if we pool buddies and we were playing pool, next week we'll see them and pick right up. But sometimes there's some of those guys that maybe you don't see on a regular basis that, hey, just send them a text and say, everything okay? How are things going? Because sometimes just, I think people knowing that you care or you're interested, that you're not always after, hey, I need something done, or yeah, I think that's a good way to start. If there's guys out here listening today that, what can I do? Well, just check in with those guys. I've lost a lot of customers, not a lot, but a few customers over the years, and to suicide, and surprisingly so. But I think it's the guys, and Susie and Lindsay probably know more about this, but I think the guys probably don't talk about it as much as this one day they just decide this is what I'm going to do, and they complete it, instead of, a lot of guys don't talk about it until it just happens.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right, Merle. And a lot of times too, nobody ever wants to die. It's more of they just can't handle the emotional pain anymore, and they just want that to stop. And so when they're kind of in that hole, that's all they can see and stuff. But I'm so glad you said that, because like I said, we want to think about what we can do about it, what solutions do we have, and checking in with your friends often, checking in with your coworkers, noticing even when people feel off, right? Just like you can feel that from people that and so that check-in is huge. And then if you are struggling or whatnot, because we've all had seasons of our life that's been high and low and in between and challenging, just being aware of where we're at emotionally and mentally is a huge thing. And knowing like, hey, when I'm having really hard days and they just never seem to get better, I'm feeling hopeless, I'm feeling helpless, I'm feeling all those things, being aware of it. And then what can I do about it? Is it reaching out for counseling, or talking to your doctor about it? Or is it, ordering a workbook on Amazon? about how to feel better, or doing a book, or listening to a podcast that can help you feel better and give you some coping skills. There's so many things that you can do, even just like journaling, getting it out of your head. I always stress that so much to my clients, that the more you trap in and the more you push it down, the more it's there. And I love the example of, it's like right now, you guys, Lindsay and Merle, if I told you guys, whatever you do for the next minute, do not think about a purple polar bear. Just do not think about it. Don't think about it. Okay. For the next minute, I'm going to time you. And now don't think about a purple polar bear. What would you think about the whole time?
Exactly what you told me not to think about.
Yep. And that's what we do with our mental health. When we're hurting or we're in emotional pain and we just keep shoving, the more it's there. And so we know now that treatment, there's so many things, and being a therapist, even since 2005, the research and the amount of things that we've come up with, like as far as treatment techniques, different things that we can do with our thinking styles. We literally change our brains, and that's called neuroplasticity. And I get really excited talking about that. But we can literally rewire our brains, and so it's so cool what we can do with that. But Merle, do you have any coping skills or things that you do that maybe could help other men out there?
Well, I think for me, there's information readily available however you want to digest it. So maybe it's getting through Facebook Reels or TikTok. You can follow there's a lot of guys out there that are talking about like a lot of professionals, like talking about mental health, not just guys in general, but you can get a Audible book, like we have a lot of Audible books around here that we listen to. But it doesn't, maybe you're not ready to take that step to say, hey, I need to go see a counselor. But maybe it's something you can do, kind of privately on your own to get some help until you're ready to take the next step. Or maybe that's just all the step that you need, is just to learn more information about, hey, here's coping skills. Because I don't know a lot about coping skills other than what I've learned through you guys, through the counseling. But there's resources out there that aren't necessarily like in-person counseling. You can do telehealth, man, if you're not comfortable coming in the office and just want to go out and, on your lunch hour, sit in your car and call your therapist for a 30-minute session, or something. And it doesn't have to be, I think there's a stigma about it, but there doesn't have to be a stigma, and it can be as little or as much as you want it to be. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And I was going to say, I love that you say that you said it can be private, because I think that's huge. I think we live in a world where everybody puts everything on social media, where you think you have to share everything. And a lot of those things that you're fighting inside, maybe you're not comfortable with talking to somebody about, but that doesn't mean you can't still help yourself in a private way. You don't have to tell anybody, but if you need that help, get out, there's ways to get it and to do that where you don't have to have an audience to make yourself better.
Yep, that's exactly right. It can be totally confidential and just to yourself, but the best thing that you can do is take that step to get that help and reach out. There's a lot of people that care about all of us, and we're meant to be here for a reason. And so yeah, I think this is a perfect spot to kind of wrap up here. I love what we've talked about today. I want to thank Merle. Thank you for being in the intensive counseling program for all these years.
I don't know if I had a choice. Yeah.
You're doing so good. And
He's our experimental client.
yes, yeah.
Not only am I the president for Country Crossroads Counseling, I'm also a member.
There you go.
That was a reference to the hair
perfect.
club for men, if you didn't get it.
Yes, yeah. But we just want to thank everybody for listening today. And if there's ever a topic that you feel like would be helpful for anybody that listens, we would love to hear it. We are all about feedback. And if you ever need help with anything, please reach out to us, because we want to help as many people as we can live their best lives and feel better.
Yes. Follow us on all of our social medias. countrycrossroadscounseling.com is our website. We're constantly putting stuff out there. Our goal is to really help people and make a difference in lives. So if you even see something you like and you share it, that helps us support that mission. So thank you for listening.